I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Patrick, thank you very much for agreeing to be interviewed. Could you tell us just a brief intro about yourself?
Hey, yeah, Patrick Parker. I'm I guess a columnist and X-rated video reviewer. Been doing this for, golly, 16 years now, with bylines at Xcritic, Fleshbot, Rogers Reviews, stuff at YouPorn, all over the place.
Okay, so take us back to the beginning. How did it all start off?
Yeah, back in the beginning, I started when I was doing a lot of different projects and writing and blogging and all this sort of stuff, trying to kind of figure out what to do. This was like back during the whole like Web 2.0 boom when blogging was kind of blowing up. And yeah, I was struggling with a whole bunch of different projects, trying to figure out, what's my voice? What am I interested in? And I was there was a website back in the day called ProBlogger.com. It might still be around, I don't know. And it was a great resource for how to develop a blog and how to come up with topics to write and things like listicles and all that sort of stuff. And I remember one of the pieces of advice, basic writing advice, right, which is write about what you love. And I remember kind of joking to myself, I'm like, should write about porn. And that kind of struck a chord with me. And I was like, actually, that would be interesting. That's an interesting topic. I think there's something there. There's a lot of searchability on the topic. I do kind of like the topic. Let's play with that. So I got started doing my first blog in the adult space. And that's kind of where I got my feet wet.
Okay, was that actually reviewing sort of porn movies, or what were you doing then?
That was kind of interesting because that's at a time when I was very much focused on this sort of glamcore and art porn concept. And I was quite different than I am now, actually. I was very snobby. I was the mindset, like I only like the fancy porn, right? So I was very fixated on things like Andrew Blake's films, big fan of X art, and then later stuff that was inspired by it, like Joy Me, Nubile Films, and all that. So I focused on, and a really good site that used to exist called NinaBlue.com, no longer around.
Okay.
So yeah, I started working on that project, and the whole idea was sort of curating the type of porn that I wanted to see more of, like really high-end, glamorous, fancy, glamcore stuff, with a very artistic spin to it. That's kind of where that started. And I branched into other things. I did some interviews with different porn stars as I built out my network and connections, and I reviewed a couple of scenes and movies sort of as the opportunity presented itself over there. It was a fun project.
Okay, so if you could sort of say you're a millionaire, Elon Musk come along and said he paid you to do whatever, what would you focus on if you could?
I don't know. That's a really great question. I think even now, I might invest a lot of money into attempting to build and improve business models around high-end, artfully inspired pieces of pornography. Now, the thing is that would look a lot different than what it looked like back in the day, like back when I was working on my original blog over there, because my tastes have obviously changed, and I've grown as a critic, I guess, as you were. Yeah, but I think I would try to curate a more holistic kind of view of like really great porn, building out maybe a membership site or something like that. Even though I understand that member sites are not what they used to be now, because the margins have been heavily eroded over the years.
If there's one thing I've learned since I've been in the industry, which is only, I don't know, 5-6 years now, is that porn is free.
Yeah,
It's
people
very
don't like to
hard for
pay for that.
anyone to do anything in the industry and make money from
Yeah.
it. It's because you can just, anyone who doesn't want to pay for it or hasn't got the money or whatever can find much the same for free, Pornhub or whatever.
Yeah, that certainly is a challenge. It's a frustrating thing. I actually have an article sort of gently prodding people to pay that I
Yeah.
wrote. They really did really well over at Fleshbot about how
Okay.
paying for porn changed my life. And it kind of looks back to back in the day when I first started, kind of growing into this thing and paying for member sites. Oh, what's this? And realize the massive quality difference that you see, as well as sort of the personal growth where it's like, hey, I'm supporting the type of stuff I like. I'm voting with my dollars
Mm.
so that they produce more of what I want to see. That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah. I'm sort of split. I know it sounds crazy, bearing in mind sort of what we do. But it's like if you everyone pays for fuel now and it's going up in price and wow, isn't it expensive? And the government turned around and said everyone can have free fuel.
Yeah.
You shouldn't really have free fuel because it harms the environment and it doesn't help petrol companies out, whatever, unemployment, but you can have it for free. And then everyone starts turning around and saying, well, the petrol companies are struggling, it's not good for the environment, now we need to charge. But you can still get it for free, but you shouldn't. People will go, I can get it for free, I'm going to get it for free.
Yeah, it's basic
Maybe
game
not the
theory
best
right there, isn't it?
example, but it's I'm just sort of trying to explain that everyone had to pay when it was on VHS unless you could knock it off somehow or like DVD later on. But now it's on the internet and it's so widely available for free. Trying to encourage people to pay, you really have to do something different or something they can't get somewhere else, either a niche or a performer or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think that might be part of the reason why the whole OnlyFans has really taken off the way it has, because you're right. You could pirate things back in the day, but it would be some really poor, shitty knockoff that you'd be getting, as opposed to having an exact digital replica in 1080p or 4K or better, which is indistinguishable from the same thing that I pay for
Yeah.
to go ahead and look at. So yeah, there's the sort of game theory concept, which is, okay, well, if it's free for me and you're going to pay, I lose if I pay. That's the mindset out there. Not saying it's right, not saying it's ethical, but people are thinking that. And yeah, it's shitty. And unless you have some value added proposition where the only way to get it is going to be to pay, or I get something more if I pay. It's yeah, it's like the same problem that we saw years ago when Napster came along and
Yes.
sort of decimating the music industry by offering everything for free, illegally, but for free.
Yeah, that's a good
And
example.
yeah, the industry had to literally reinvent itself. And I feel like it was something like initially iTunes with the 99-cent songs, and then
Yeah.
Spotify changing the entire environment with everything's free if you pay for the subscription service, right?
Yeah.
Make it easier to be legal and pay
Yeah.
than it is to steal.
While we talk about it, before I forget, I think that's a good point, and maybe you'll be able to answer this question. I don't know. I'm surprised someone hasn't come along. Not obviously not Apple or Spotify, but a large company, and said we want to provide something like I don't know, the Blacked or Vixen or Tushy, that sort of lot, and we want to combine it with Perv City and DP Diva and other companies. So you can sort of pay a monthly fee, but you can watch different production companies under the same subscription fee, rather than having to have 5 or 6 different accounts and paying like £1,000 a month for your subscriptions.
Yeah, in a way that kind of exists.
Okay.
In a way. There's a bunch of different examples of this sort of thing. Bang.com is a reasonable example. A better example is probably Adult Time, which that's my cat in the background. AdultTime.com is a much better example, I feel, because they have their own wealth of independently produced material, but
Yeah.
then there is a tremendous amount of stuff that they've got through different content sharing agreements. I don't know how they work exactly, but you can watch Vixen network content as well as other network content. like Join Me, like Sex Art, and all these other things
Oh, yeah.
through
Okay, I didn't
one
know that.
subscription on adulttime.com.
I was under the impression for some reason that Adult Time were just so big they'd just find another channel they liked and just buy it and add it to their brand.
No, they've got stuff
Okay.
from Vixen, they've got stuff from all sorts of places. The
Ah,
thing is, when you're a member over there, while you can access a lot of that information, I think they even have stuff from like Jules Jordan and Hard X, if I remember. But
yeah,
the thing is, you're not going to get the current thing. So like when
yeah.
Vixen
Okay.
has something brand new and really exciting that you want to see, like Octavia she's got a new scene coming out in like what 3 days over at Vixen. Well, that's
Mhm.
going to be a Vixen exclusive until months later, a year later, I don't know,
Yeah,
whenever it falls into the purvey of Adult Times
yeah.
network.
Okay. All right. Going back then, so you're doing your blog, and that was fairly successful, I presume, because you kept on doing it for a few years. How did you progress from there?
Yeah, it did really good actually. Surprisingly good. It was a lot of fun to do. Made a lot of income. Did really good. Um, yeah, I ended up walking away from it. I ended up getting overwhelmed by all sorts of hacker type issues. I was doing it was all independently managed and run on my own. So the way that sort of stuff works is you are IT security and all these other sort of things. So if you're not on it 24/7, yeah, you're going to fall behind on your security updates. And it was unfortunate and it became too much work, right? So I stepped away for a little while and I moved into, I guess, the more professional kind of world of this when I started talking to he goes by Don Juan DeMarco, who's at the time was an editor at Xcritic. Um, and I started kind of building a little bit of a relationship with him, and he had seen some of my writing previously, and he encouraged me to kind of get back into it. So I ended up working together with adult oh goodness, adultdvdtalk.com.
Yep.
And they have their whole interview section and forum section as well as movie reviews. So I began doing movie reviews and I even did a little bit of a foray going back into a little bit of interviews with them as well. And I had a whole lot of fun doing that. I kind of rediscovered my love for writing these articles and doing these reviews and talking to these people um, and it's reasonably successful. And after a little while of doing that, I yeah, I actually reached out to Raj from Raj's Reviews, did some other stuff for him, and then Don Juan gave me a chance, an opportunity working with Xcritic, and that's kind of where I really hit my stride.
Okay. So where did you progress from there?
Well, that's kind of where it was because I was doing all that stuff. Um, a lot of it was pro bono, just having fun with it, really, and that's where I moved into xcritic.com, which was a huge review focused website and they gave me the opportunity to go over there, join their staff officially,
Right. Got it.
and and focus mostly on movie reviews. And that's something that I very rarely dabbled with, which is like full on DVD reviews. And so I had a lot of fun with that. I started that maybe in 2016, 2017, something like that.
Okay.
And yeah, it was great. I got on their staff and it was very just very much like do your own thing, right? We didn't have a lot of stylistic writers guides for better or worse. You could manage your articles the way that you wanted to manage them, right? So they would uh, have like a database of DVDs in the archive that needed to be reviewed. You'd sign up for them, and there was some sort of seniority based order, and then they agree to it, and they'd send you the physical media DVDs in a packet of 4 to 5 of them at a time. And you had a deadline by the end of the month, you got to have it done, right? So they'd send you for like 4 or 5 DVDs. And then in a month, you got to watch all the DVDs and then write your full movie reviews
Right.
and get that stuff submitted, formatted, and ready to go.
Okay. That does sound like quite a bit of work.
It's a tremendous amount of work. Oh my goodness.
Talk us through the
especially if you're, what's that?
Talk us through the process.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the process. It's everybody has their own, and mine is really long and really tedious because I am a bit of a perfectionist, right? So, yeah, so I'd get my DVDs, and it's one of those things where, like, I'm like, okay, what I've got to get my head around this sort of thing. So I'd watch the DVD with a notepad, a physical notepad, and then I'd take all my notes, just kind of in rough format. I just kind of make note of things that were interesting to me. Okay, go back, look at your notes, think about it, and I'd have to watch the whole damn thing scene by scene all over again, kind of amending my notes, right? So if it's a 2-hour DVD, we're 4 hours plus in at this point, right? Then, personally, I need to wrap my head around it a little bit more. So then once I'm starting to work on my rough draft, I'll go ahead and play those scenes while I'm typing up my rough draft. So like on the one hand, I've got my notes, which have been cleaned up. On the other hand, I'm looking at the scene in real time, sort of taking my notes and trying to like piece it together into something that represents English and prose, right? And tie it all together. But that's only, that's only, let's say 3/4 of the whole deal. Because once you've got it done and you've got your final draft and everything, well, we didn't have any kind of graphics department or anything. So now you've got to go out there and load the stuff into whatever movie player you like. I like VLC player. It's really good for this type of stuff. And set up all your screenshots because people like pictures, right? So you have to have your pictures loaded into the post. So now you take all your screen cap pictures, all that sort of stuff, load it into the post, load it up with all the metadata for search engine optimization, and send it off for editing, and eventually it'll get published. It was work, but it's a labor of love, right?
I wonder sometimes. Okay, I had a really great question for you, but as tradition has it, I've forgotten it.
That happens. That happens.
All the time. Okay, bit of a lame question, but I thought I'd throw this out there and see if you can answer it. So if you could only have one scene that you could ever watch again,
Oh, that's
what
so
would it
tough.
be with which performers?
But just one? Come on.
Yeah, I've got to make it tough because else you'd come up with loads of different ones, different production companies, different performers, different themes. So if I just say just one, that makes it a bit more difficult for you.
Yeah, it really is. Okay, so this is sort of an answer that can vary day by day,
Oh yeah,
but
I get you 100% with that.
I'll tell you one thing that I could come back to all the time, and that is, and I'm kind of cheating here because it's such a long scene and such a multifaceted scene that it's practically its own movie, but it is one scene. Faye Reagan in Vince Voyerville's production of The Gauntlet 3. Phenomenal scene. I was actually just on this on Twitter, on X, whatever the hell we call that app nowadays, just maybe a week ago, talking about it because it is this ridiculous. Are you familiar with the Gauntlet series at all?
I am not. Only the computer game from the 90s or whenever it was.
Oh wow, cool. It's a little different but similar. Yeah, so the Gauntlet is a concept by Vince Voyer in sort of the golden age of Gonzo, as it were.
Yeah.
So it's Gonzo concept where you'll typically have one headline star, right? Faye Reagan in this case, led through the gauntlet by somebody, Rebecca Linares. And it's a gauntlet of practically every male talent in the industry. I mean, it's kind of insane and ridiculous. And you're walked through this entire gauntlet, and we're talking like maybe it's an hour and a half long, if not longer, scene where Faye is just going from situation to situation. I'm not even going to say dude to dude. It's situation to situation, whether it's a one-on-one or a threesome or a gangbang or a blowbang or whatever. It's just one after the other, after the other, after the other. And this happened extremely early on in Faye Reagan's career. It's one of her first scenes ever, which is bonkers because she's so new, so fresh, and she's doing this kind of an insane scene. And it just highlights the diversity of talent that not only she has, but also the diversity of the industry as a whole. Like you see so many different things happen within one take. Even I don't know if it's actually one take sort of film, but it feels like it's a one take sort of thing where the camera's just following her along, as a lot of those Gonzo films were back in the day. Yeah, maybe that one won an AVN award that year. It was pretty remarkable.
So what sort of year was that made as a guesstimate, or do you know?
Oh goodness, when was that made? That was probably done early 2000s for sure. Let's see.
Okay.
I can look that up for sure. If I had to guess,
No, I remember
2007.
the name. Okay.
2007.
I remember the name, and I was thinking, have I interviewed her, or I don't know. It's obviously,
Yeah.
I know I've probably not interviewed as many performers as you have, but when you've done so many and you have other people doing interviews for you, you sort of end up losing touch or control, if you like. And I've reached out to performers saying, "Hey, seen a couple of scenes, really love to interview you," and they're like, "What, like this one?" And they send you like a link to your own website, and you're like, "That's the one. Yep, that's good. Thank you for doing that."
Right.
Shocking, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you've given me a couple talking points here. So do let me know if I've missed out anything you'd like to discuss. But I've got here getting involved with publishers.
Yeah.
Could you expand on that a bit?
Oh, well, I mean, just like moving on beyond doing my own thing, my own personally managed blog, which is where I started publishers, as far as moving on to actual organizations like your Xcritics, XBiz, and now Fleshbot, which is what I'm mostly working with, Porn Crush, which is brand new sort of thing. Moving on to the point where instead of publishing my own content through my own independent blog, I'm actually working with actual larger mainstream publishers out there.
Fleshbot seem to be sort of an increasingly influential brand at the moment, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of like working with them. That came about completely by accident for me. I like their product. I've actually really enjoyed reading their interviews specifically over the years, and they've been around for a good long while now. And I wound up with them through a merger. I was working with Xcritic. I had no desire to leave Xcritic or do anything else, but Xcritic ended up being sold to the owners of Fleshbot, which is a big organization that owns Cherry Pimps and a whole bunch of other organizations out there. And we ended up getting kind of merged into their Fleshbot product. So if you look into their search features, you'll find the Xcritic picks and all of our old DVD reviews and stuff are all now merged into their database. It's a huge process. And at least initially, all of us Xcritic staff members were put onto the Fleshbot staff, and that's pruned out a little bit over the course of the year. But it's a slightly different process, slightly different organization, but I really enjoy what I'm doing over there. And I think I finally kind of hit my stride and found my voice within the organization.
Okay, good. They seem to be involved in a lot of different things. They seem to be sort of I wouldn't say a bit of everything is the phrase I was used, but it's probably a lot of everything.
Yeah. There's a very large staff over there, and it's multifaceted. I mean, they cover practically every topic. There's traditional mainstream porn divisions. There's cultural divisions. I think we still have like a cooking thing that we do over there, like porn star cooking recipe. Like it's all over the place, man. It's pretty crazy.
Okay.
As well as interviews.
I'm going to sort of take you back to something you mentioned earlier about doing interviews, something which obviously interests me. If you don't mind, would you just tell us your sort of like your process for interviewing a performer?
Well, it's been a long time since I've done interviews because I sort of got away from that once I got on staff with Xcritic. But I do remember my process for interviewing, which was kind of haphazard. And first and foremost, I mean, it lies in a whole lot of research, and it's not just research like, oh, I'm going to watch all your porn. Okay, no, it's really digging deeper into that. Okay, who is this person? Uh, let's dig up previous interviews that I can find, whether it be YouTube or other sites like that. What have they mentioned? What awards have been won? Uh, what have other people said about them? What's the Twitter feed? Is there, if I type it in as a search, like their name as a search, what are their people saying? I want to get a really full picture of like who this person is. And then when it comes to porn stars, this is very, very, very hard to do. Um, it's to try to, before I go into the interview, I want to have some read on who this is as a human being, right? Because so much of the porn fandom is specifically about the porn, just like, oh, like sexy, cool stuff like that. That's great, but I want to know who you are as an actual person and kind of what you're about. And I want to have some information about that before I go into the interview, uh, so that I'm kind of prepared to push in certain directions. Beyond that, it's just a matter of typing up a lot of general open-ended questions and kind of feeling it out as I go. I mean, with certain people, I would do an interview and it was pretty much a straight up 20 questions as I asked it because they weren't giving me a whole lot. Other
Yes.
people, there's a lot more give and take. So I might start with like one canned question and it just turns into a delightful conversation.
Hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah. I don't want to talk too much about myself, 'cause obviously, so chatting with yourself to find out about you. But the thing I found with interviews pretty quickly when I started, you could send 100 emails out or Twitter requests or whatever for interviews, and you'd have like 2 replies, and then
If
you'd
that,
message them back saying, "Hey, thank you so much for applying. It'll be an email interview or it'll be a video interview. When are you free?" And then you don't hear back from them.
yeah, that's, oh,
And
that is
I
so true.
I
Yep.
immediately stopped doing any research because I could still be researching my first 100 interviews now, and I've done like over 500. It's it's a shame. But I spoke to, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Kisser Sins. I can't remember who it was, but it was a performer I met in New Jersey, one of the expos there. And I was really frustrated, and I said it to them, and they said, "You know what it is? Is because they said as performers we're people pleasers. So we'll always say yes, we'll always say what we think you want to hear, but we'll do something completely different usually."
Yep. Yeah.
And
That's,
that explains it.
that's very common. That was very common for me. And oh man, it was so frustrating to reach out to people. And then there's a question of how do you go about reaching out to people? And I'm going to kind of cut back over here because I don't want to put this out because I don't want every random fan to know how to really get in touch with
No,
different porn stars and stuff like that. But like there are right ways and wrong ways, and you know yeah, it's frustrating when you go through all the proper channels and try to set something up and it's scheduled firm, but it cancels. But that's life, right?
oh
And
yeah,
I don't think that that's necessarily just a porn thing. I think that well, I know that if you're interviewing people in other industries such as music or gaming or sports, the exact same thing winds up happening for one reason or
okay.
another. The difference might be that you don't get ghosted quite as much in certain other industries as in porn, but it happens everywhere.
Yeah. My pet hate. I suppose it's sort of nice, but it also my pet hate when you'd send a message to a performer like, "Hey, I'd really love to interview you," and then they like it and they're following you, and you're like, "Great, can we do an interview then?" And they're like, "I'd
Nope.
love to," but then after that, they just like ghost you. And then
Yeah.
if you tag them again, saying, like a few months later, "Hey, we'd love to interview you," and they like it, and you're like, "I see." So whatever I say about you, you'll
Yeah.
like, but you don't actually want to do an interview, which I don't mind. Some performers would rather. I mean, one guy, I won't say his name, but he was quite chatty messaging. But he said, "I don't want to do an interview because, to be honest with you, I'm a bit bored of your questions." He says they're the same as everyone else, but I get that. But I'd rather stay mysterious. Fair
Well,
enough.
I mean that's to each their own, right?
Yeah, I mean that's maybe his thing, but people don't know all about him. Just watch
Yeah.
his scenes, and if you want to learn more about him, you'll eventually get to know a bit more about him as a personality. But other than that, no interviews. Fair enough. So I'm sure there are some female performers who are the same, or they just don't really fancy doing all these questions. I mean, they don't need to, if they're getting paid for it, it'd probably be different. But if they're not, then they're probably thinking, well, hey, look, I've got plenty of scenes on. Why do I need to do an interview with you?
Yeah. In fact, I think that's part of the reason why, as I moved forward with my writing, I sort of moved away from a lot of the interviews.
Yeah.
Because it's cool to be able to talk to people and really kind of get to know somebody and share that with the world.
Yeah.
But it is a lot of effort, and it's a lot of effort with no return on it.
Yes.
And that time and effort could be better spent doing other things. Now, I will say that when I was actively pursuing interviews and doing the same sort of thing that you're doing, I found a lot more success, and this is years ago before everybody was a big deal through OnlyFans. I found a lot more success with brand new talent because they were really trying to kind of manage their career and make a name for themselves. So they were happy to take different interviews and stuff, even from maybe unorthodox people, such as smaller bloggers at the time, which was me. And that was kind of cool. And I still know a few of them. Like one person who gave me a chance right away when she was brand new, unheard of, is Olive Glass, who had just made the transition from a career in mainstream fashion modeling and come
Yes.
into the porn world. And I thought that was fascinating. Why would you do that? Like, what's going on? And I ended up having a wonderful interview and wonderful conversation with her. And she still follows me on Twitter, interacts pretty regularly, and has had an amazing career growing not just in the porn space, but also using her growing presence in porn to leverage even more fashion and artistic erotica type of shoots and events. So she's been wonderful to talk to and wonderful to watch develop over the years as well.
Very interesting. Okay. Right. Is there anything you'd like to discuss that I haven't mentioned?
No, I mean, I guess I would say check out my column at Fleshbot, the Parker's Picks column, where I try to make it a monthly column. I don't always succeed with that. Where I pick 5 things of interest to me. It's like a listicle type of thing, top 5 scenes of this or that or whatever. My new one should be coming up probably this month. I already submitted to them, which is going to be my top 5 underrated scenes at the Vixen Network of all time. Because you know what? You guys, you people who are subscribed to the member sites, I love you. I love you. But you downrate amazing scenes, incredible scenes with like 8.0 and lower ratings. Come on.
Fair comment. Right. Thank you very much for doing the interview.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?